Did you get 2 of these? Yeah, look at that. We got 2 of these babies. I changed the heads because you have a lot of alternate parts. Yeah, I like this kit so much that I got 2 of them, and we're going to do something with both of them. And I was showing earlier some sketches, some plans that I was doing with this. So, yeah, I thought that maybe we could possibly get into some seamline removal. I showed this later, and I was talking about it previously, how the ball here on this model does not have the seam line removed, whereas this one does. Oh, sorry, vice versa. Found it. Okay, thank you, Rev. Let's take a look. No, the original ones and the build version. Yeah. Second pit you ever painted. Are we ever gonna get a look at that? I would love to see it, Eddie. Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting the G-Reco version of this too. Although, to be honest, like, I would, in all likelihood, paint it, so, like, they would just end up looking, like, there wouldn't be a point, in a sense. Once I'm home. Okay, cool, thank you. No big rush, of course. But yeah, look at this. So here we have the ball with the seam line removed. And here we have the ball. Obviously, I put a gap in here, but the seam line has not been removed. And if you look, there's still a hint of the line, but generally speaking, it's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. And so how about here at the start of the stream, we kind of work on that. Oh, I see. 30-minute missions. Option armor spy drone. Ah, okay. Cool. Yeah, this is more of like a boxy design, I guess. Interesting. I wouldn't mind just getting something like that. You know, to have some options. I love 30-minute missions in general. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Okay, so let's get to the seam line removal, or scheme line removal. Yes. Energy time. There we go. So here we have the 2 halves, and they will fit fairly snugly. Oh, this is my jam right here. Alright, so we have the extra thin cement, and now we're going to just fill this area here. And I apply quite a bit, actually. Although you don't want it to spill over, which it has a little bit, but that's okay. We can kind of clean that up later. And there are different methods of doing seam line removal, but this is the one that I kind of use for, like, just like as standard practice. And if I ever want to go into using putty, I can do that too. And there we go. We smush it together, and the parts, you will see a little bit of bleeding or beading of the glue. Sorry, the cement. Kind of coming through, and that is the melted plastic. Asian yodelers? I don't even know if this is an Asian lady. That would be something. That would be something. Yeah, so we just want to make sure that's a nice tight fit all around. And you can kind of go in and kind of... Sometimes I do it when it's already assembled, just like this. I feel like that'll get the job done, although I don't think it's as good as putting it in between the parts and then snapping it together. And then really, we're just going to have to let this chill for a bit. And I suppose we'll come back to this a little later. I don't use clamps. I did use clamps for a while. My yodeler. I have used clamps in the past, but potentially if the parts are thin enough and you clamp down, the reaction of the cement kind of starts to melt and break down the plastic, and then you might end up with a situation where the clamps are like putting too much force and actually kind of splitting apart the pieces, and that's not what's... You don't want that. Keenan! What up, Keenan? Epo Yodler! So yeah, let's kind of let this chill. That's your energy for today. Alright, I think at this juncture, we should take a wee break from this and get back to my balls. Huge boxes, hard to fit in the backlog closet. That's real, man. That is real. Chonk and cute. Alright, so I have already glued these parts together with cement, and you can still see the seam line. But now we are going to begin the process of eliminating the seam line. And I think we'll use this right at the start. And what I like to do is actually just... So because this is a rigid sanding stick, I'm kind of like passing over it in like a rolling motion like this, and we are only going in one direction. Just like the band. We're only going in one direction, and there's a point to that which I will get to later. Don't even deny it. Dobby. SDBB Dom, but I can't. Could be misremembering. So yeah, we're kind of like not going in a flat motion because that would then flatten the plane. We want to maintain the curvature, and that's why we're doing this. I do have some sandpaper that would probably do the same thing, but let's just do it this way for now. Now, the purpose of going in a single direction is I find that you kind of get the plastic particles to fall into the gap. Any remaining, like, ever so slight gap, the plastic bits fall into that gap. And then what I like to do is actually go and run another pass of cement into that gap. And I do this process like a handful of times, and it works out. It works pretty okay. Arch. Twitch subs are increasing prices now? Really? Is that... When did they say... When did they state that? Oh my gosh. Or has that already been enacted? Wow. Wow. I forgot what grit this is. This is actually 400 as a matter of fact. So that's pretty heavy duty. If I notice that the gap, there really isn't much of a gap, or if the gap is really shallow, then I tend to just kind of start blasting away like I am doing now, to get to that point where like it's just flat. But if there's a gap that isn't going to be addressed by doing this, then I'll fill it up with some cement. Email? Oh boy. Damn. Well, you know, Jeff. So there are some details on either side of the seam line. There's like these like lines, and I'm not too concerned about that. Like, as I'm sanding away, I'm not really too concerned about preserving that detail. I can always go and like rescribe and reinforce that if it ends up being obscured too much. Moving to kick. Oh, only for Australia, Canada, and the UK? God damn. Why we gotta suffer? God damn. So now I'm going back over with the cement, the thin cement. And like I said, over the gap, even though it might be small, because I've been going in one direction as I've been sanding, all the particles, the plastic particles, sorry, words are hard, are falling into the gap, even though it might be very slight. And then by applying some of this, the cement, it kind of helps to act as like a filler, or to solidify the plastic particles into a filler. That's the theory. That's just a theory, a game theory. So yeah, I feel like I've done a pretty decent job thus far with that. And now at this point, really, we'll let that dry, and then we'll come back to that and go over it with like the finer grits to get back to that smooth surface. It looks fun. Okay, so let's look at our balls for a second, guys. I've done the seamline removal, gluing, and the initial sort of pass of sanding down the parts, and as I said, taking the plastic particle dust and making that fill up the gap, whatever small slight gap there was, and then applying another layer of the cement glue on top. And now we are at a point where I think it's okay to clean up this part beyond this stage that I've done, right? So this is now a 600, and we're going to go over it just a little bit. And as I said just like before, we're kind of maintaining that curvature. Look at the balls, everyone. Gather around now. Observe. We're kind of maintaining that sort of motion to keep the curve, keep the roundness of the balls. This is priority number one. And now you could do this with a sponge or even paper. That would probably do a better job, but I just have these handy here right now. And again, just like before with the finished example, there still might be a slight hint of a line, but it should be fine. Round ball energy. Should be fine when we then go on to apply primer. There we go. So already we are getting to a point where this ball is looking mighty fine, and the seam line is barely visible at this point. I feel like I've done an even better job on this than I did on the first ball. But at this point, I think I'll go on to use the sponges, and the sponges are flexible, which is really going to help get a nice finish. So I've got my sponges all lined up here. They go from 1,000 to 25 hundo, and I have them all lined up like this in terms of like the grades. So we'll start this now. So here we go. Here is the 1,000, and again, looking pretty good. I feel like over here we're seeing some faint indication of a line. So let's kind of go over it again. I don't intend, so with the other bowl, if I had seen something like this, I very well might continue the process of sanding and then adding a layer of cement glue and going again. Or alternatively, you could kind of go over the gap with some milliput or what have you, but I feel like for this project, this is probably good enough. Balls can be more shiny and smooth, yes. And as a matter of fact, this one here, I went and used a piece of denim, or not a piece. I went into my closet and found some jeans and just started rubbing my balls up against the jeans to get it this shiny. It's a similar idea to like, if you preserve like the same direction too, like it's kind of like what you would do with sharpening a blade when you're kind of like aligning like the microscopic fibers, if you want to call it that, in a single direction. There we go. Arch, I just started rubbing my balls against the jeans. Epo fanfic. And then he took his balls. Rub them against the denim to get them real shiny. Welcome to Horny Mondays, everyone. All right. So now that was the 15 hundo. Now we're going on to 2000. And at this point, it's more like just coming back to a finish that resembles the original plastic. The heavy duty of sanding the model is done now, and really you're just looking to get back to that like original luster, original sheen. It's all about rubbing balls on your jeans. And in some respects, it's not that important. It's not that necessary to do this stage, especially if you intend to paint or do further modification as I'm planning on doing. But for the sake of like demonstration purposes, we might as well just kind of go all out, balls out. And again, guys, if you look, I'm kind of maintaining the curve as I'm sanding away, right? I'm not going straight like this. Although at this point, you're more about polishing rather than grinding away at the surface. Just take the foam star. Oh, womp womp. Did you play much of that, Arch? I know you were talking about that previously. All right, so let's take a look. And for those that remember the start of the stream, there was these were two separate halves, but now they have fused together. The ball has fused into one. And hold on, let me get my glasses so I can actually see if it's focusing. Yeah, so that is looking pretty good, and I think we've done a decent job of maintaining the roundness, right? We haven't like flattened it out, or the shape hasn't gone ovoid or anything like that. We've been very mindful to kind of sand in a curving motion, and that looks pretty solid. IMO. And here's the example that I had done previously. And this one's okay too. I feel like I did a much better job on this one. And that's the general principle. Now, the same applies if you're doing a flat surface. And a flat surface could potentially be easier. You just have to be mindful of keeping it flat. And maybe you wouldn't rely on using sponges like this, which tend to curve. This one's a thicker sponge, so it doesn't curve that much. But use things like sanding sticks or a glass file to maintain the surface of a flat piece. But that's the general idea of seam line removal.